The sun had only begun to climb the pale blue sky when the city awakened with its usual noise. But inside the towering glass building of Aurelius Enterprises, a quiet and fragile moment was about to unfold, one that would pierce through dozens of lives like a soft beam of light breaking through storm clouds. On the polished marble steps outside the building, a girl barely 19, with a worn crutch beneath her arm and only one leg to stand on, trembled from exhaustion. Her name was Risha Marlowe, a name almost no one in that crowd of expensive suits and clicking heels had ever heard. Yet, in the next few minutes, every life rushing past her would be forced to pause, because sometimes destiny chooses the least expected moment to whisper something extraordinary. When Risha finally lifted her eyes, filled with fear and quiet strength, she looked at the man whose single decision could change her fate. Zayden Hart, one of the youngest and most influential CEOs in the city, and with a voice barely louder than the morning breeze, she asked him something so small and yet so heavy that it rippled across the courtyard like a heartbeat. "Can I sit here just for a minute? If you believe kindness still exists in this world and everyone deserves a second chance, then please take a moment to like, comment, share and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Your support helps these real and heartfelt stories reach more souls who need hope." Risha slowly lowered herself to sit on the edge of a stone bench near the entrance. She wasn't begging, she wasn't crying, she wasn't asking for help. She was simply trying to rest, trying not to collapse in front of strangers who had no idea what storms she had crossed to arrive here. Her thin hands pressed against the bench as if grounding herself back into the world. She smelled faintly of hospital antiseptic mixed with the dust of the streets. Her hair was uncombed, her clothes worn but clean. For a moment she dared to look up at the building she had come for, a place she once saw only in newspapers her grandmother brought home from a recycling shop. She whispered a silent prayer to the morning light as it warmed her face. She needed this 1 minute more than anything else, because beyond these doors she was hoping to ask for something no money could buy. A chance at dignity, a chance at life. Zayden had seen thousands of faces in his career, business people, investors, interns, politicians, but none had ever stopped him the way this girl did. There was something painfully honest about her presence, like a painting that had been torn and stitched back together with threads of sheer will. As he stood a few steps away, he could feel something tightening in his chest, a rare sensation for a man who had built walls around his emotions long ago. He noticed her trying to hide her trembling hands. He noticed her trying to shift her crutch so she wouldn't be in anyone's way. And even though people passing by were staring, some with pity, some with annoyance, some with curiosity, she held herself with a quiet dignity that struck him harder than the tallest mountains he had ever climbed. She wasn't there to seek sympathy, she was there to breathe. Risha wasn't always like this. Just months earlier, she used to ride her bicycle through her small neighborhood, waving at children and stopping at the roadside flower stall run by old Mrs. Godfrey. She dreamed of becoming an illustrator, drawing stories that made people cry and smile. Her notebook was always filled with sketches of birds, cities, and imaginary worlds where kindness grew like trees. But one unfortunate winter evening, as she was riding home with art supplies she had saved for months to buy, a speeding truck skidded on the wet road and crushed her path. She remembered the sound, the scream, the blur of headlights and the world spinning. She woke up in the hospital with her grandmother's cracked voice repeating the doctor's words. Her left leg couldn't be saved. What followed was a long, painful silence inside her heart. The girl, who once ran faster than the wind, now struggled to reach the kitchen. Her dreams, once so alive and bright, dimmed under the weight of despair. Yet Risha did not break. She learned to walk again with a crutch. She learned to fall without crying. She learned to breathe through the pain. But the hardest part was watching her grandmother's health decline because the old woman had worked tirelessly to support her medical bills. When she passed away, Risha found herself alone in a world too fast, too loud, and too unforgiving. The only thing she had left was her art portfolio and the memory of her grandmother whispering, "One day, someone will see your worth." It was this memory that pushed her to the city today. She had heard that Aurelius Enterprises was hosting an open presentation for young creative talent. Anyone could submit an art proposal. Anyone could walk in with a dream. But when she arrived, she realized she was far too early, far too nervous, and far too exhausted to stand in line with everyone else. The pain from her hip had grown intense after the long bus ride, and she struggled to remain upright. That was when she saw the bench, and the moment she sat, she felt a presence standing close. She looked up and saw Zayden, tall, sharp-jawed, dressed in a crisp blue shirt that reflected the morning sky. His eyes held a seriousness shaped by years of corporate storms, yet there was warmth beneath it. He studied her for a long moment, and though he said nothing, his gaze softened, not with pity, but with recognition. Recognition of a soul surviving against heavy odds. Risha wiped the sweat from her forehead. Her breath was uneven, and the pain in her hip was growing sharper by the second. She wished she could simply disappear into the bench, and then, out of nowhere, she heard his calm voice. He didn't ask what she was doing there. He didn't ask why she was struggling. Instead, he gently told her something she had forgotten long ago, that she was beautiful. It wasn't about her appearance. It was the kind of beauty born from resilience, courage, and depth. His words were so unexpected, so pure, that she felt her chest tighten. For years, she had avoided mirrors, hating the reflection that reminded her of loss. But in that moment, someone saw beauty in her again, and something inside her cracked open like a window welcoming sunlight. Zayden then motioned for her to follow him inside. He walked slowly so she wouldn't struggle. The security guard stepped aside without question. The employees turned their heads but didn't dare whisper under the CEO's watchful eye. Risha felt like she was stepping into a dream, one built with glass walls, glowing elevators, and people who walked like they owned the world. She kept her crutch close, her steps uneven but determined. He led her to a waiting lounge where young artists had already gathered. Their clothes were expensive, their portfolios leather-bound, their eyes filled with ambition. Risha felt instantly out of place. Her folder was worn, edges frayed, papers fragile from years of handling. But Zayden quietly placed a reassuring hand on the back of her chair before leaving for his meeting. That small gesture filled her with strength. Hours passed slowly. People presented their ideas. Some were brilliant, some average, all confident. When Risha's name was finally called, her heart pounded so loudly she thought it would echo across the hall. She walked to the center with trembling steps. The judges, including Zayden, watched her patiently. And then she opened her folder. Each drawing was a story of pain transformed into hope. Birds learning to fly with broken wings, children planting flowers in cracked concrete, a girl balancing on one leg, reaching for the sun. She didn't speak the words aloud, but her art spoke for her. It spoke of loss, courage, survival, and unbreakable spirit. The room fell silent. Even the air seemed to pause. When she finished, she stood still, gripping her crutch, waiting for rejection. But what she received instead was applause. Slow, gentle at first, then powerful enough to shake her heart. Zayden's eyes glistened with admiration. The judges didn't need a conference. Their decision was instant. Risha's art wasn't just accepted, it was chosen as one of the featured projects for their new kindness-based community campaign. She would be paid fairly, mentored, and supported. Risha felt tears burning behind her eyes. She couldn't breathe for a second, overwhelmed by the sudden shift in her destiny. She had come with nothing but hope and memories, and yet she was leaving with dignity, opportunity, and a future her grandmother had once believed in. As she stepped out of the building later that afternoon, the sun was warmer, brighter, and kinder. The same marble steps where she had once almost collapsed now felt like a gateway, not a barrier. She looked back at the building, whispering a soft promise to the sky that she would honor this second chance. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Your engagement helps these emotional, inspiring stories reach more people who need hope today. And before we end, please comment the word believe if you feel kindness can change someone's entire life. Thank you for watching, and may kindness find its way into your day.